Apple's latest update for the iPhone 15 Pro Max not only improved, but completely mitigated the thermal issues that I was having, which made this phone extremely hot under light loads and compromised the battery life. When the iPhone 15 Pro Max launched, a number of content creators, myself included, were really quick to jump on the issue, not to chase views or start a non-existent problem, but to inform you of something that I personally found to be quite concerning. I clocked the 15 Pro Max at nearly 50 degrees Celsius, which is 122 Fahrenheit for you Americans, whilst doing nothing but simply browsing Twitter. What made the issue even more complex was that I had uninstalled apps like Uber and Instagram, which were reportedly causing the issues for a various amount of people. But just like some of you, my experience varied drastically. On one hand, my phone was getting really warm doing light tasks without the apps that were causing the issue, and the other, I had a bunch of you in the comments telling me that you weren't experiencing this problem at all. It got, honestly, very confusing. But before we dive deeper though, I just want to say thank you all so much for the support on the channel recently. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers, which is just insane to me, and if we can hit that before the end of the year, I would probably cry. Like, it just means the world, so thank you. Anyways, now that the smoke has cleared a bit and Apple's officially put out a statement about the problem claiming to be from a handful of third-party applications and has in fact released the update 17.0.3 to fix this issue, my experience has been solid. Gone are the days of my 15 Pro Max being too warm to handle, and no longer am I afraid to use the phone under those conditions in an attempt to save the battery life and the battery itself from any further degradation. And thankfully so. When I made my first video about the first 48 hours with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, I said that the battery life was honestly pretty good, and that with my estimation, I see myself getting easily 10 to 11 hours of screen on time. Though since then, the battery has been a touchy thing. I wake up at around 8 a.m. and I've been finding myself needing to recharge around the 3 to 4 p.m. mark just to make sure I'm able to make it through the day. This made me scratch my head a lot. Considering that I've never really had a bad experience with an iPhone and its battery life, at least in recent years, where Apple's kind of been at the top of the game. But with mixed usage, some photos, and social media, I found this phone to not provide the endurance that I needed, which as a result made me honestly not want to carry it around. In fact, I've actually been looking into using an iPhone 15 as my secondary device instead of this 15 Pro Max because I've found the battery life to be on par, which is really weird considering that this has a much bigger battery. Though after this update, it's all been completely turned around. I'm able to get about 5 hours of screen on time and still have about 40 to 45% left at the end of the day, which is honestly for me pretty incredible. And that kind of sticks in line with the estimate that I made in my video previously, so I don't think that this phone could have any problem getting me that 9 to 10.5 hours screen on time like I initially had hoped for. All in all though, I do have to say that the performance so far has been solid ever since, and that I'm really glad that this was an issue that could be solved via a software update and that it wasn't something to do with the titanium build and hotter SoC like we had initially thought. And when it comes to spreading that misinformation, I really do want to apologize. I feel like as a content creator, it's my obligation to give you the most accurate and truthful information about a device when it's released, and I felt like everyone kind of just jumped on the bandwagon and started talking about the things that made the most sense. At the time, the titanium chassis was new, and we have a new SoC inside of this phone, so it wasn't very weird to kind of blame it on the phone itself and not third-party apps because we've never had this issue on an iPhone before. So whilst I did miss the mark completely, I do want to go ahead and tell you that I will never do something like that to intentionally mislead or misalign people on these devices because I don't have any biases when it comes to smartphones, although I do prefer, a different operating system or a different manufacturer. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna go out here and purposely try to ruin this device's reputation just, to fuel my personal satisfaction. That's ridiculous. It's just that we were all kind of proven wrong, which is a good thing. Now, that doesn't mean that titanium is going to be anywhere near as good as stainless steel when it comes to that thermal performance, but at least now we know that it isn't the build of the device that was causing these issues. With that out of the way though, I do want to just share my final thoughts on this device until I give it a long-term review later down the line. I had a fantastic time with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and honestly, if I wasn't so hard set on Android for a very few specific niche set of things that I do on my phone, I would honestly daily drive this device. I think that the phone is incredible and that the performance of the A17 Pro is just unmatched. When it comes to gaming performance, there really isn't another device out there quite like this. And being able to play full PS4 ports of games like Resident Evil is insane to me. And the fact that we're expected to see the latest Assassin's Creed Mirage coming to the iPhone 15 Pro is truly something that I never thought would be possible so soon on a smartphone. And I've absolutely been loving these cameras. As someone who isn't exactly a photographer or even has an eye for taking decent photos, I can say that I've been in awe every time that I've picked up and used this device when I'm outside. I've been able to take genuinely some of my favorite shots that I've ever taken on this phone, and it really shows. And the inclusion of the 5x telephoto lens, although disappointing in the announcement for this device, I think it's actually what completes the camera system for me and makes this phone much more capable. Like everyone, I was hoping for a 10x telephoto. Although unrealistic coming from Apple, I was so used to having it on the S23 Ultra that I didn't really want anything less. But I do have to say that having the 5x optical lens, in my opinion, has actually made it much more useful, at least to me. I don't ever find myself needing to take a shot from a large distance unless I want to try to be creative or I'm playing around with the camera on the S23 Ultra, but having the 5x telephoto lens on the Pro Max is something that I can honestly say I use nearly every single day. It also retains so much detail and the colors look natural to my eye, and so far some of my favorite shots I've ever taken on a smartphone have been from the 15 Pro Max. I will be doing a comparison a little bit later down the line with the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro once I get it in a couple of days. It should be arriving soon, but if that's something that you want to see, I would go ahead and make sure you're subscribed because I'm going to be doing a lot of videos versus these two devices. Because especially when it comes to photo and video, I'm really curious to see how that Pixel 8 Pro stacks up. Granted, it is a few $100s cheaper than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. While I do have you here though, in case you missed my last video, the 2-week review with this phone, I do want to go over some things that I've actually been enjoying about this device and what have made it a really viable option to me. USB-C on an iPhone. Thank you, EU. But in all seriousness, I can't even put on paper how much I appreciate this change and how far beyond welcomed it is. The versatility out of this USB-C port is incredible. And on the iPhone 15 Pros, it has a maximum data transfer speed of 10 gigabits a second. On the Pro and the Pro Max, this allows for things that I wouldn't even have dreamed about being able to do on an iPhone, like ProRes recording directly to an SSD, which does actually solve two problems for me: transferring that data and the data transfer speeds. Being able to access a DCIM folder off of my SSD and instantly grab footage I need is a game changer, rather than having to tediously wait for AirDrop, or worse, be using a Windows PC and have to do some crazy workaround. It's also just been a huge help when it comes to charging around the house. When I was having issues with the battery life prior to the update, I was able to use whatever cable was around. Whether it would be the USB-C cable from my MacBook or even my Z Fold 5, it doesn't matter, it's USB-C, and that being standardized now on the iPhone just makes it a world of a lot easier for people like me who just have a ton of these devices and cables laying around. And even things like my Rode Wireless Pro microphones, which I'm actually using to record this video right now, work flawlessly on the iPhone over USB-C. And thanks to it being USB-C now, I don't have to carry around that extra lightning cable if I want to go ahead and shoot something while I'm out of the house. And like I said, the mics work flawlessly with these things, as with every other USB-C device that I've tested. So it's been a really good experience having that port on this 15 Pro Max. And because the iPhone can even do display out over USB-C, I can actually go ahead and use these TCL AR glasses, and I have all of my content from my phone being mirrored to a basically 200-inch OLED display. It's pretty crazy. That's not something that I was able to do previously on the iPhone without using that AV multi-out cable that was meant for lightning that was just absolutely terrible. All of that through a singular port is just something that I've been wanting on an iPhone for ages. And the fact that it's here, I almost still can't believe it because it seems a little too good to be true. But thank you, Apple. Or thank you, EU. I guess. Overall though, the experience that I've had with the 15 Pro Max has shocked me. It's hard to do videos like these though because there aren't that many new features unless being compared to an iPhone that's a couple years old. Like, I actually went ahead and set up my old iPhone 5S the other day, and the similarities between the two are crazy. Obviously this is a way better device, and I'm not saying to go ahead and buy an iPhone 5S, but when it comes to iOS and the capabilities, There's just too many similarities between the two that make justifying going from like an iPhone 14 to an iPhone 15 something that I can honestly recommend. iOS just turns this experience from what could be a perfect score in my book and sours it a little because of how tightly knit and closed off it truly is. And as a consumer that simply likes things to be a little more open, to give me some more functionality out of a device that I'm paying nearly 2,000 Canadian dollars for, I just don't get that with the iPhone. Which, like I said, makes it a tough sell if you're going from a recent device. But I'm not saying to buy it and I'm not saying not to buy it because it would be ridiculous of me to gatekeep this. I'm someone who switches phones a lot, and because I may not see the innovation that comes every year just because I'm so used to, trying out the latest and greatest, that doesn't mean that someone won't appreciate what this phone has to offer, and there is quite a lot. That being said though, really think about this decision before you cash out an entire paycheck to pick one of these bad boys up. Other than USB-C and an updated camera, as well as the action button, the experience is not going to be very different from the iPhone that you've had in your pocket for the last couple of years. Regardless though, this is still the best iPhone that you can buy, and now that the issues are solved, I have no problem recommending this phone to anyone who asks me about it. Apple absolutely knocked it out of the park with this iPhone, and that makes me really excited to see the future of iPhone and the future of iOS. Like I said, there are just things that this does that I really wish this could do because it would be in my pocket every single day of the week without a doubt. I've been extremely happy with this phone, and that's honestly something that surprised me. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like down below, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.